So hello and welcome. Happy Friday. Today's Friday, February the 6th of 2026. This is Backyard Beekeeping Questions and Answers, episode number 343. I'm Frederick Dunn, and
this is the way to be.
So I know right off the bat, probably the only one that's cold this year. I'm cold all the time, every day, and it's getting old. And I know you want to know the numbers. How cold is it outside? 16.5 degrees Fahrenheit, that's minus 8.6 Celsius. That's really cold. 16 days below freezing. Not a warm up, not a single minute above the freezing line, which is 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 Celsius, of course. 4.9 mile per hour winds and 7.8 kilometers per hour. That's the good news, but it's going to get windier, which increases the wind chill. We have 95% relative humidity. So that wind chill is going to be a big problem. I'm in the northeastern part of the United States, the northwestern part of the state of Pennsylvania. If you want to know what we're going to talk about today, please go down in the video description and you'll see all the topics listed in order with some associated links that might be helpful to you. If you have a question right now that's on your mind, you need an answer, you want to share a picture, you got a video sequence, you need the opinion of your peers. This is not a place to go and promote your products and sell your stuff. It's the Way to Be Fellowship on Facebook. So if you go there, check things out. This is also a podcast. So if you just Google The Way to Be podcast, you'll find it. So it's hosted by Podbean. And it's also a playlist. So if you want to see every single one and you don't want to miss a podcast, you can subscribe to my channel, which is Frederick Dunn on YouTube, or you can go to Podbean, The Way to Be, or you can go to thewaytobe.org, the website, and click on podcasts. It automatically updates every single time. And then you can submit your own question there while you're on that website. Click on the page marked contact. And then there's a form. You fill it out. And it's good to go. I don't know what people are doing here in the southern United States right now because this ice storm that came through, and it's not over yet. There's 2 states that stand out right now. These people are not used to cold weather like this. What would make it worse? Mississippi and Tennessee. What makes it worse? It's not bad enough that it's cold, it's freezing, it's sleeting, and your life is on hold, so to speak, but some people are without electricity. Can you imagine that? So our thoughts are with the people down in Mississippi, more than 20,000 people still without electricity. That's an extended period because they just can't get to them. They just can't fix it yet. And Tennessee, greater than 9,500. Those numbers are reduced, but it doesn't matter if you're one of those who's without electricity, and you're one of the people that's probably not even watching or listening right now. So if you've got friends down there, check in on them, see how they're doing. So, what's going on outside other than the fact that it's freezing? The deer are doing weird things. So I posted a video during the past week of deer walking around on their hind legs. So, and of course they don't continuously walk on their hind legs. They walk on all fours, but they get up on their hind legs enough now. It's very strange if that's the way you see them for the first time. Why are they doing that? Because they've exhausted almost all the forage that's at normal browsing height. And it's funny looking only not, because they're really chewing down everything. The problem with the deer population right now is that they're consuming all the resources that other deer need, so the herds are not under control. And I mean herds of deer. What's that got to do with honeybees? Well, the things they're chewing and destroying are going to feed our bees normally in spring, and they just can't get through the snow. And there was another weird thing that I noticed when I was walking around looking at beehives with my thermal imager just a few days ago, taking some pictures. In fact, I took the photos in a series of videos that you saw at the opening of today's video. Something was sitting on a robin's nest, which is under the overhang, the soffit area of the Way to Be Academy building. What do you think it was? It was a raptor, a small raptor, a screech owl. It was dead. So I learned some things about screech owls over the past few days. One, they have to catch a vole, that's their number one target, or a deer mouse. So every single day. If they don't, their metabolism is so high, they just die out. So the suspicion is that that screech owl ended up in a robin's nest because they build in sheltered areas and it was protected from the wind and the snow and fluffing all its feathers out. I thought it was playing possum, so I got a close-up photo of it until I realized it was dead, and I had to call the game warden. Then the game warden came out and they collected it because they're concerned. Do I have chickens on my property? Is what the game warden asked me. Yes, I do. Well, they're worried about high path avian influenza. He didn't seem to understand the numbers associated with that, but that's okay. H5N1 is high path avian influenza. And they just want to make sure that, for example, domestic poultry are not spreading it to wild birds, and wild birds aren't spreading it to our domestic poultry. That little tiny owl, very unlikely that it would feed on a chicken. And the chickens are all cooped up anyway, so I wasn't worried about that. Another thing that they look for, what has the owl eaten? So if it is a rodent, what if the rodent was treated with some kind of pesticide and then the owl ate it? Then the pesticides in the owl dies. This is why we never use pesticides or rodenticides on our property, ever. But it led me to some other thoughts here. Of course, the snow is so deep, there's ice packs on it too, which normally owls would hear things moving under the snow, they dive through the snow and they get a hold of it. And the voles, I would like to see the owls get as many voles as possible, but then it occurred to me, I have cameras in a lot of outbuildings. And we keep an eye on mice and rodents because I talked about them at the beginning of the winter because we need to get them under control once they get inside a building, including the building I'm sitting in right now. Once they get in, it's a big problem. But you know what? There's been zero rodent activity for the past, 4 or 5 weeks. And I have several cameras, motion detectors, so that I know what's going on. That's the first thing I check every morning. So I think the rodents might be protected under the snow. I don't know. But how about you? With the extended winter conditions, are you seeing fewer rats and mice and voles and things like that out there? I haven't seen a single shrew, not since the beginning of the year. And normally you can hear them fighting too. So anyway, the bees are in tight clusters. So I have not opened a hive yet. We have a warm day coming, and by that I mean it's going to hit the 30s. And so when we hit that warm day, it's critical. We're going to definitely swap out emergency feed resources on the hives. This is going to be part of the fluff at the very end of today's talk. So I just wanted to point that out, that things are challenging. Now, this is not the worst ever, of course, but the longest, because I looked it up, the longest time we've had a continuous cycle without a single degree above freezing for extended days, we had it for 40 days here in the state of Pennsylvania at one time. But that goes back to 1977, so we're not even worried about that. We're not that bad off yet, but it is bad. It's dragging you down. Find a hobby. Find something to do. Watch a YouTube. Learn about your bees. Get a book. Those are all the things I have to tell you. Let's jump right in with number 1, which comes from Alvin from Yonkers, New York. Did they say Yonkers? Yonkers? Okay. Hey Fred, I recently bought a Lyson 8-9 polyhive. I knew you've had issues with condensation in these hives before, but these newer models have optional venting slots in each box. Do you think this would fix the issues you were having here in the Northeast? Thanks. And it's true. The Lyson hive I've had in the past, I was not that thrilled with it, to be honest. And they did have little vents like in the bottom, right in the bottom board, the polystyrene that the bottom board was made of. There were little twist dials that opened up the vents. I didn't like it, to be honest. I also didn't like the feeder design that they had on top, and ultimately I just abandoned the hive design. But before I responded today, I wanted to take a look. Let's find out. Maybe Lyson has made some changes, and they did. So they're looking better. In fact, if you consider the price of all the other beehives that are out there today, Lyson is competitive, and they have what's called their rapid hives. And they sell them in 6-frame and 10-frame designs. And where did I go? I went to Better Bee because I check there often. And what happened is I noticed all their new equipment, the new bottom board design. They have medium supers. They have a new hive top feeder that looks pretty darn good. They have a deep telescoping cover that's more insulated than their other covers from the past. They have reinforced joints. I have nothing to do with these people. I don't sell them. I don't get a discount. You should ask for the Frederick Dunn discount when you go to buy one, if you buy one. But you know what? With this current weather, with this winter, A lot of people are wishing they had fully insulated hives. Polystyrene hives, right now, I don't have any. I have the Hive IQ hive, but of course, is not deployed to the backyard. And someone else said, hey, Fred, if you don't want it, you could give it to me. And I said, no, because I'm keeping it, because I am going to put it out there. How can I talk about it if I don't test it through a year? But I'm almost wishing this year, with all the weather and issues that we have, that I had more poly hives out there. I don't know. But BMAX is the other one. And by the way, the Lyson hive stands are my all-time favorite hive stands, hands down. So if you're buying an adjustable hive stand for uneven ground that's going to last you the rest of your beekeeping life, Lyson, get those things. They're worth it. And I'm telling you that because I already got mine, because I don't need them. I took care of myself first. So you should ask them for the Fred Dunn discount. Absolutely pay the same as everyone else. Better Bee does not have a discount for any of my viewers. We should lean on that. We should make them give us a discount. Ask for it anyway, can't hurt. Question number 2 comes from Matt from Easel, Kentucky. Hey Fred, so my question comes from a listing Better Bee had, so we're back at Better Bee here. In the 2026 catalog for the complete bee lining kit, that includes the following: the Wild Bees book, the Swarm Trap box, an anise scented syrup. I don't think I've ever seen anyone bring up that scent outside of lemongrass that you can use. I did some searching and it looks like it can be used for other ways outside of attracting a swarm. Have you attempted to use that in the past? Not sure how much better it would work over a swarm lure or lemongrass essential oil. Thoughts? Okay, so what we're talking about here, though, this is a confusing question for me because we're talking about bee lining. And some of you may not even know what bee lining is. So have you ever heard, let's make a beeline for this location? Well, when the bees go from one location to another, they zing around, take a look, and then they streak straight at it. It's called bee lining. So we're going to talk about Dr. Thomas Seeley. And I have this box. You know what this is for? It's for bee lining. Now, I tried it. What's the purpose of bee lining? You go outside, you find a bee on a nectar or pollen source. Primarily a nectar source, though, because you're going to lure this bee back to the box. So what do? You open the box up. Note, there's a plug in the front of it. What's the plug do? Covers up a window. Why does it cover a window? Because bees follow light. So for now, let's make it dark. So the bee lining box, this flips all the way up, by the way, but you're going to open it just enough. You're going to see a bee on a flower. You're going to close this up around the bee on the flower. You've got it inside. Will we open the window now that we got the bee inside? No. Bees go towards light. Look at this. There's an intermediate barrier. We pull that out. We also pull off the back barrier. Look, there's a window there. The bee inside this box now sees the light goes to the window. Once it's near the window, we close it up. Now the bee is trapped back here. We need that to be dark again, so that we put the back closer in. Now the bee's in a dark room. Camera obscura. Dark room. Okay. Now we open the front again. There's no bee and it can't get out to here. What do? We're going to feed it sugar syrup. So we take this fake honeycomb here. You can use the real stuff if you want to. You can cut a chunk of Better comb. Since we're already at Better Bee, you want to get some of that. Fill it with sugar syrup. Now this is the part that I think they wanted you to use anise oil. And I've got a couple of different types here. That's anise oil. And this is the stuff, this is what I recommend if you're going to use it at all. Get the stuff that's approved for people. This particular one is the highest ranked anise oil that you can get right now on Amazon. Okay. So you mix up some sugar syrup. I recommend that it be a light sugar syrup, 1:1. You put it in the cells, you put that in here. Oops. You put it inside. Now we need the bee to feed on that. So fill it all the way up. Close it. Take off the cover because now we want light to go in there, because what are we going to do? We're going to pull out the middle. The bee now goes from darkness to the light. It walks into the light. So it's attracted to the light by a couple of things. So this is the only way I could think that maybe the anise oil is important. If you've got a bee that's not that encouraged, that doesn't move right away to that, and once you see them in there, and once you see them getting the sugar syrup, set this on a stool or something out in the meadow where you're sitting because you're beelining. What's the purpose? We want to find out where this bee came from. So we're going to open this up. Now the bee will finish eating. Once it finishes eating, it's going to come out here and it's going to do a little flight, and it's going to do a little figure 8 back and forth. It's going to orient. It's going to make sure it knows where this is located. It's going to fly off, and you're going to pay attention to the direction it flies off in. But I recommend you wait first until 2 or 3 of them come back to this nectar source that it found before. Once they do that, once they're in there and they're all feeding, close it up again. Now we don't have to move them all the way to the back because we have sugar syrup right here. They're in the front. That's good. They went in on their own. We move this to a new location. At the new location in the direction that we saw them come from and go to. So you move that way. Open it back up. Let them finish drinking. They fly out again. They all do the orientation. They take off again. And whatever direction you see them go, you continue going that way. And then let me tell you what you end up finding and why this thing does not look used. I'm sorry I keep shutting it with a snap. That might be loud for you. But you know why this basically looks brand new? Because where I live in farm country, all you end up doing is finding another beekeeper's apiary. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. It's really good theory. Things work well. It's good to teach kids. Kids are excited about stuff like that. They lack patience. So getting them to sit down, turn off their cell phones, tablets, whatever they have, and pay attention to the bees instead. This is a great way. Bring your folding chair, sit, watch, and it's your job. You spend an afternoon doing this. And then once you find them, but you might, on a great day, luck of the draw, find out that it's actually coming from a bee tree or something. And then you found your bee tree. And what was the method that you used to find that bee tree? Beelining. I want to thank Dr. Thomas Seeley for the biology of the honeybee. So anyway, essential oils is that, because that's a discussion, really. Beelining is something I wanted you to understand. Highly recommend it. Try it out. But the essential oil, I don't think it's not that important because we're catching the bees. We're not luring them. Essential oils are really good for getting bees to come in from a distance. And because they fly through a pheromone stream or a scent that they like, and they come right in. So hyssop, for example, is where that oil comes from. And now as to why Better Bee recommends that specific essential oil in that mix to get their attention better, may help the bees find it once they're returning, but I think their visual cues are the strongest, and they will come back. So you can try it, and put down in the comments section, by the way, if you've done beelining before, have you ever found a tree with it, or did you just get kicked out of your neighbor's yard? What happened? Did you make another beekeeper mad? It's fun. It's good bee theory. And of course you want to do it during prime flying. So anytime after lunch would be great to get out there and start doing that. You get your best foragers at that point. Now let's take it back to early discovery. Let's say we wanted to find a scout. Let's say we didn't want to go and collect it from the flower itself. Let's say we wanted to sit out with our beelining kit early in the morning, 10 a.m., not 10:05, 10 a.m. And now we mix 1-to-1 sugar syrup with the tiniest bit of anise or anise oil. And then we have that great scent. Now, when the bees are foraging, scouting, looking for new resources, one may fly through that and actually home in on this and find it. So rather than us going to a plant that's got bees on it, collecting them off that plant, maybe we can do the passive method. We just sit out there with a stool that this sits on and allows you to just wait, and then you watch bees come from downwind and up to it. So you could actually lure them that way, and now we're not collecting them off the actual flowers. So there's another method. I guess that's the part where it would work. How about that? Try both. See what happens. Question number 3 comes from Beth, and Beth is in Findlay, Ohio. It says, in the last few Q&As, you've talked about keeping the bottom board clear for bee cleansing flights. What about non-traditional hives? With the lay-ins, long Langstroth hive or the top R's. It is a box with an entrance hole. How do bees and humans keep these entrances clear? Apiver, AZ hives as a cabinet with different entrances. How do those hives keep the entrance clear? Well, here's the thing. Here's the good part. I don't have to clear those entrances. Let's take the Layens hive, for example. When you look at the entrance to the hive, it is a circle, by the way, which is very easy for mice to get through, which is an annoyance to me. Anyway, that hole is off the floor of the hive. So, if you're making a beehive like that, Long Langstroth, any of the horizontal hives, my recommendation is not to have the entrance right on the floor. Here's the interior floor surface. Don't have your entrance so that when you look through you see the floor. The entrance could be 3/4 of an inch or an inch off the floor. Because what does that do for us? It means that we don't have to clean it of dead bees. I've never had any of those hives with plugged holes, including my small nucleus hives that have entrances off the floor, an inch off the floor to be exact. Dead bees that collect on the bottom don't plug the entrance, so we don't have to clean them. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try. I mean, if you got a vacuum cleaner or something, you could do that. I have that little Shark vac that's portable, it's handheld, it's battery powered. You can go out there and just clear the entrances for GP. But those hives don't need it. Now the AZ hives, they have entrances that are on the bottom board, but screened bottom boards, and I don't think there's a lip going down. So AZ hives have other entrance alternates, so you've got at the next level up, you can open those if you needed to let your bees fly if there's a chance. Get a nice warm day, they should be doing cleansing flights. You can open one of the upper entrances if you can't get the bottom board cleared. But so Long Langstroth, Layens, nucleus hives, AZ hives, anything that's got the hole that's not directly on the bottom, you don't have to clear them because they don't plug up. Also, some of the hives that we've put slatted racks on, they have a solid board on the front, leading edge of the slatted rack, and the dead bees tend to pile up on top of it because they're dying from up above in the brood area, and down they go on the slats, and I've noticed that those stay clear better too, but that's just because you'll find the pile of bees on top of the slatted rack instead of blocking the entrance, which is under the slatted rack. So on the cabinets, as far as venting goes, because there's some discussion here from Beth also about AZ hives or the Apiver hive, which, by the way, if you were at the North American Honeybee Expo, which I'm sure many of you are tired of hearing about by now, when you first walked into the expo floor, the very first exhibit was really well done, and it was by Apiver. Apiverte, Apiver. They're a Canadian company. And I meant to talk to them, didn't get to. Why? Because there was so much interest in their product, in their cabinet style, inside a building, kind of modular hive system modeled after the AZ hives. The only difference is, of course, they take standard Langstroth frames, which is a huge bonus for those of us who have a bunch of that equipment. So inside a building, the additional venting inside that space facing the interior is fine because we don't have winter wind blowing through there. The bees are still controlling the airflow, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You also have an opportunity to collect dead bees off of there, check your trays on the bottom. There's screen bottom boards, I believe, and removable trays underneath, if they're designed the way I wish they were. Then you could just pull those out and dump the dead bees and put them back in. So there you go. And then once you close up the back of the hive, inside the space, the bees that are loose, moving around, just go right up and back inside the hive. It's pretty tight. Pretty good stuff. Okay, so I hope I answered that question. But just think of places where the bees occupy spaces on their own. Think of bee trees. The entrance is very rarely at the very bottom of the cavity. Usually the cavity extends below the entrance. And that's good and bad. It's good because, again, dead bees and detritus build up there until the weather warms, until your bees are flying, until the undertaker and the house cleaning bees can move around and get rid of the detritus that's inside the hive. So, but it's not critical. They take care of their flights first, which are cleansing flights. You're going to get their moisture second, which water is number 2. And then, of course, they can start cleaning house. But usually that hole is about in the bottom third, not directly on the bottom. So same thing happens. Okay, so here's another question from Wendy. It says, hope you and your bees are well. I noticed my colonies temp in my big 2 times long lang was dropping. My big 2x long lang was dropping. Okay. When I looked in this afternoon, there were tons of bees on the floor. Only 2 frames of bees, including a small queen, were left. Last inspection was October 14th, 2025. There was a mated queen. And a bunch of dead bees stuck in the Apame half feeder full on fondant. Have you had an issue with those half feeders of condensation dripping on the fondant and making it sticky? Okay, now I've already responded to Wendy because that was kind of important. And she sent pictures, which was really key because this is the fondant. When you get a fondant pack, and this is the only fondant I use, and this is Hive Alive fondant, if you tear this completely out of the pack, pull all the plastic off, and I've seen others do this too, I've never recommended doing that. And Wendy's photo about what was going on in her Apame feeder that just happened to fit on the long Langstroth hive was due to the fact that this is all exposed. So the plastic was completely removed. So my response is, please don't take all the plastic off of your fondant and just stick the fondant in a feeder. Because that moisture, by the way, that was on the fondant, that's great. It helps the bees metabolize it better. Helps the bees metabolize it quicker. They can't consume anything, even their own stored honey, unless they have enough water, right? But when you have something like this, is basically a very viscous liquid already, and if the bees can access it and walk on it, it's very easy for them to touch their wings to it, their bodies to it, and get bogged down in it. So what we want to do is cut this right in half and put the half, leaving all this on, and then you'll just have an open seam inside this Apame feeder. So I'm going to show you what the feeder looks like. And the reason this is set up like this is because I've demonstrated this already before. But the half pack of Hive Alive fondant fits in there just right. You'll have one side that's just cut away. This one's inside a gallon Ziploc baggie right now just because I'm trying to preserve it. And you just have these on the candy fitting. So the bees come out on the ends, which is what the photo had. But in the photo, there was no plastic here at all. It was just the fondant. And the fondant was kind of spread out all over. The bees were stuck all over the fondant. So we want to just open a seam or just open a center hole, for example, when it's on top of your insulated inner covers and things like that. The bees will eat their way into it, but then they can retreat without being stuck on the fondant. I hope that makes sense. And that was my response to Wendy, and hopefully now they've got it under control. But when you put your fondant in, even though if you're making your own, you still need to find some way to cover it. Most people use wax paper. And then, of course, the bees need to access it so they can consume it to survive if it becomes their emergency resource. And a lot of people are seeing that their bees are just making it because they put emergency food resources on their hives. If they didn't have it, I can tell you right now, some of the hives that I have, out of the 43 colonies that I started at the end of the year with, I know that a bunch of them would be dead already if they did not have emergency food resources inside the hive on the top. So that's why they're sticking. There's too much exposure of that material, and they'll find their way through. So you can cut the seam, expose it, cut the corners off, but don't let the bees have full-on access to all the surface of your fondant. They will get stuck. Question number 5 comes from Carrie George. That's a YouTube channel name. Thank you for the very interesting video. At the end, you mentioned checking the food stores when it warms above freezing. What is the best way to give them any additional food at that point in winter? So you have lots of food options in winter. And when we say winter here, it may be different than what's going on in the South, although I can only imagine that some of you that are in the South right now are in unexpectedly Arctic conditions. So syrup, for example, we don't feed sugar syrup in the wintertime. It's too much moisture. Your bees have to fly. They have to get out when they consume those resources. So you have choices. Dry sugar takes the most amount of work for the bees to consume, metabolize dry sugar. Sugar in a sugar brick. Dry sugar can ultimately become a sugar brick if it's exposed to condensation, and the condensation changes the sugar and turns it into sugar candy. That's why they're often referred to as candy boards. Now, you do need a feeder shim to accommodate the food that you're putting on. So at this late game, this late date in the game of keeping bees alive, there isn't time, for a lot of people to change configurations, to pull an inner cover off and put a feeder shim on, for example. I hope that you already have the ability and the option to feed your bees at this time of the winter. That means you have a feeder shim or some space that allows your bees to access food. This is a feeder shim, for example, with an optional upper entrance that I personally never use. And if you had this sitting on your top box, so you've got your honey that's stored in the wintertime, maybe it's a medium super, something like that. This sits on top of that. Now you can put a single layer, for example, this is an emergency, single layer of newsprint. I use regular newsprint, but newsprint can also have print on it. Some newsprint is made with vegetable dyes or whatever, but I just get regular newsprint. Most elementary schools have it. All art classes have it. Anyway, you put that on there and you can just pour dry sugar right on top of the frames. You don't have to make cuts in it. I know some people say, take a blade, punch a bunch of holes in it, and do stuff like that. No, you don't need to do that. Because what's going to happen is, and above this will be completely insulated. Word to the wise. If it's not insulated above it, please do insulate it above. So if you've got a standard telescoping cover up here with a metal clad top and that really thin Luan sheet under it, and that's it, now it's time to put some, after you put your sugar down, put some double bubble. Foil-faced bubble wrap is what it looks like. It's double bubble insulation. Reflectix is another option. Put a couple layers of that on there, then put your standard telescoping cover on top of that, and that's with the dry sugar underneath. What's going to happen to the dry sugar is the condensation from your bees up above them is going to ultimately soak the paper. The paper is going to get moisture in contact with the sugar. The sugar is going to start to leach down into the paper. The bees are going to find out the sugar tastes sweet. They're going to chew it, cut it, tear it away, and they're going to access the sugar. And then you'll see a bunch of holes in it. Instead of the whole thing just opening up and the sugar falling down in, more condensation may come up into the space, and then the bees will metabolize more of that sugar. That's not efficient, by the way, but it is better than nothing. So the next thing is, let's say you planned ahead and you've got a feeder shim up there and you've got a really nice feeder system. A really nice feeder system, for example, would give you the option to feed sugar syrup, like when the weather's warmer or when it warms up in spring, or solids, fondants, sugars, sugar bricks, candy blocks, things like that. So you want to make sure that you have something up there. So whatever is your final feeding station on top of your hive, and on top of the hive is the most efficient place to put it. Obviously, closer to the bees is more accessible to the bees, but if you'll notice, there's not a lot of space directly under an inner cover, for example. I've seen people take fondant packs or winter patties and really force them down on the frames to jam them in so that you can put that inner cover on, and then as I see them close it up after they've done that, where the inner cover sits, it never makes the connection to the top box, and now we have an open gap around the full periphery of that. Now let's say you're one of those people that you don't have anything. So you're going to put winter patties on, which, by the way, a good intermediate move is winter patties because they're thin. But if you put those on there, don't jam them in. Rest that right on top of there, and then I would wrap the sides with HVAC tape. What is that? Aluminized tape. This stuff, it's sold at all the home centers. And then, but that's not very insulating, is it? Well, then around that, you're going to put double bubble. You're trying to save your bees. You don't want to make it so that the cold spot, the dew point, gets achieved inside the hive up above the cluster. You want that area to be more insulated than the rest of the hive. That's the rule. If it's above the cluster, it needs more insulation than whatever's below the cluster or at the cluster walls. So I hope that's clear. So you make an insulation sandwich. And of course, I wrote back to Carrie George right away, said everything, because we're talking, it's a time crunch right now. People are going to lose their hives. People are going to lose colonies of bees this year. And they won't know. Was it because of nosema? Was it because of, I don't know, was it the varroa mites, the lack of management? They're going to be, the blame game's going to go wild. But people are going to lose bees this year. So what's under your control at this point in the game? Feed. Emergency resources, semi-solid feeds. What's my number one choice if I had to tell you one thing to get? It would be winter patties or fondant. And they're kind of similar. Different companies sell them. The Hive Alive fondant, Hive Alive itself, has scientific research backing it. That's how we got everybody's attention in the first place. And now I can't talk to a beekeeper that hasn't tried it, that doesn't use it, that doesn't swear by it. Some people say it's expensive. Well, compared to losing your colony, I guess it could seem expensive. I don't know. This stuff lasts a while, and you can save your bees and get them into spring stronger than they otherwise would be. They metabolize it much easier than a candy board. Think about what a bee has to do. And if you make your own fondant, good for you. You could do that. So if you're savvy in the kitchen, and if you can do some kind of cold process where you don't make that damaging byproduct of heated sugars and stuff that I don't trust myself around. So for me, getting it pre-mixed is and packaged and ready to go. So I just go out there with a big box of it. I go hive by hive, and I pull it off. And if it's 2/3 consumed, it goes off, and the other one goes in. And then some people get upset because there might be some bees in the packet that you pull off. So you're in a pickle there, because if it's really cold, you need to try to get those in the front entrance or vacuum them off or something like that. I don't have a really good answer for how to get the bees out of that packet and back in the hive right away, because you're going to seal up the hole that they're accessing your fondant with the new fondant. So bees that are in that packet, they might just be lost bees at that point. But shaking them off on the landing board, if you can do it, they tend to stick in there quite a bit. Okay, so food that you can put on top, if it's dry sugar, remember they have to liquefy it first. So I've made extensive observations of bees consuming dry sugar and bees consuming sugar bricks. And they rub these little holes in it at first, and it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time. And someone recently asked me, says, where do you come up with a number of 40% more energy consumed in getting that instead of fondant or syrup? It's a direct observation of time spent collecting the resource. So with all things being equal, temperature parameters and everything else, offering fondant, for example, head-to-head with dry sugar and head-to-head with sugar candy boards. The bees work on that extensively. The candy boards, it's actually 10-to-1. So in other words, they're spending 10 times more time on the dry sugar or on the sugar bricks as they are on the fondant, which means a foraging bee or a bee that's out collecting these resources gets the maximum resource they can carry in the shortest amount of time possible, and they fly back to the hive to deliver that resource, and of course to pass on the information to other bees inside the hive through a waggle dance. And then the bees that also have the potential to go out and carry that resource home go out to get it. But water is necessary. The drier something is, the more water is necessary. So they have to carry water with them or enough moisture, and water bees are not nectar gathering bees. So this is a conflict for the bees. So the moisture needs to be in direct contact with it, or the bees have to have some way of getting hold of moisture so they can metabolize a dry resource. Remember that if your bees were flying out in the environment to get a carbohydrate, it would not be a dry carbohydrate. It would be a nectar source. Now, the closest thing to a solid that bees go out and collect naturally would be stealing honey from other bees. That's 100% honey, completely finished. That would be, in theory, the most viscous material they would encounter. So the fondant pack is much more accessible to the bees. Even though it's more dense even than honey, it is easier for them to work, collect, and return home with than it is for them to do dry sugar or a sugar brick. So then we make that comparison inside the hive, because they also, depending on the resource, if you're looking at the packet, if it's a winter patty, if it's fondant, whatever it is it invert sugar? Now, a lot of people get very fixated on that because sucrose is something that your bees collect, but they have an enzyme with them. Okay, it's called invertase, and it creates invert sugars, glucose and fructose, and that then becomes something they can metabolize. So they have to first liquefy it, invert it, and then metabolize it, because they're not storing it. Most of them in the wintertime are going to take this, and through trophallaxis, which is the behavior where bees pass on a resource to another bee inside the hive that might be doing a very important job that they can't move away from. Let's take, for example, a heater bee. So in the middle of the cluster in the wintertime, we have brood right now. We have bees that are keeping the brood warm. So even while, look at the temperatures we have outside. Even while it's cold outside, there's a mantle on the outside of the cluster, and as you move your way in, it gets warmer and warmer until we're at 94 to 97 degrees Fahrenheit on the brood. That temperature is kept by heater bees. Sometimes you see holes in the brood area, and so now we have one bee sticking its thorax in there with its abdomen sticking out, and it's generating a lot of heat. It's heating 6 adjacent cells. They can only do that for so long, and they glow if you're doing a thermal scan. And then it backs out and it has to recover. During that recover period, another bee, like think of a resource bee that comes through and brings additional resources to that bee so it can replenish the water that it needs and or carbohydrates that it needs. So all this is going on. So the closer to a liquid state that it is, and the more metabolically prepared it is for digestion, the easier it is for the bee to utilize it in a short amount of time. So I hope that makes sense. Now, dry sugar, candy boards, bricks, better than nothing. That's for sure. But a colony that's weak, that's struggling, that isn't already doing well on its own, is not going to be able to make very good use of that. That's why these resources need to be put on as soon as winter begins. Not at the, I didn't realize that this is, it's water under the dam and all that. Water over the dam, under the bridge. Anyway, at this point, the reason I'm telling you this is not an I told you so thing. In other words, if you didn't listen to me in the fall, good for you, your bees are going to die. No, I want you to resuscitate your colony. I want you to still take some action if you can. And get it wherever you can get it. Whatever's cheap and ready. Because something needs to go on a hive if the bees are clustered at the top and they're out of resources. That's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, so we're going on to Scott from Omro, Wisconsin. I wonder if I said that right. Omro? Okay. I've long admired your hoods for your hives, both for snow and shade. I'm not much of an engineer, but hope your career might lend some ideas for a simple hood for winter for Apame hives. Note, I want to avoid attaching a hood similar to what you have developed, shown on your videos, to avoid piercing the outer wall of my insulated hives. I thought about using half 2-liter bottle cut down and so on. Anyway, first of all, they're called hive visors, and some people call them hive canopies. So if you notice, FlowHive has also made one. But the hive visor. So if you don't know what that is, it is nothing but a piece of 1x6, and I like to make them out of cedar, some other lightweight wood. And it is a canopy, an awning, whatever you want to call it, but I call them hive visors. And they have screws that hold them to the sides of your hive and a straight arm that comes out, and then the canopy just hangs in front of the hive and shelters your bees from the landing board being either in sun or sleeting, rain, snowfall, and things like that in the wintertime. Makes a big difference. So the thing is, the Apame hives, if you don't know what those are, they're plastic hives that have polystyrene sandwiched into a very durable plastic cladding. And on the outside, how would we attach it, right? So this came to me easily and quickly. In fact, because of this message from Scott in Armrow, Wisconsin, I'm going to produce another quick tip video that's going to show you how to make the new hive visors. Because what I'm going to share is going to actually work well on both sides of it. So right now we put thumb screws on, and the thumb screws adjust to some variation in the hive width. And we have them for 8 frames and for 10 frame hives, and they're super handy. A lot of people use them. So this is great. And by the way, even though I put out a video on how to make them and stuff like this is not my innovation. So people think, Fred came up with that. No, I did not come up with it. Behind me I have a really old book, ABC and XYZ of Beekeeping by the AI Root Company. They're in there. That's a really old practice, by the way. In fact, they used to put wind baffles on the hive entrances also, so cross winds wouldn't knock your bees off the landing board when they're trying to come in. So the hive visor thing is not new at all. Why haven't people used it? Why isn't everyone using them? Because it's expensive. It's another piece of kit that you may not need. You can do without it. So, see, the problem is, or I don't know if it's a problem, but we're after efficiency of resources because a lot of what we do is based on commercial beekeeping. So efficiency means what's the return on my investment going to be if I have to pile up a hive visor for every one of my hives? It has to be taken off because we need to stack our hives together so we can ship them around. No. This is backyard beekeeping. You can put all the ornamentation onto your hives that you want to. It makes no difference. We're not moving them around. So once we're setting them up, you can put all these little additions on there. Do you know that one of Langstroth's complaints about the beekeepers back in his day, if you don't know who Langstroth is, he's the father of modern beekeeping in the United States. Yeah, he's the one that came up with using bee space effectively with removable frame beehives. A lot of people had removable frame beehives before Langstroth, but they were not set up in a way that respected bee space that allowed the frames to suspend themselves without being attached to the walls, without the bees gluing them up all the way around, because he understood bee space. Langstroth was griping way back in the day about how beekeepers were such skinflints that they could not see that their economy in buying equipment was costing them profoundly in the long run. That he was upset that these tightwads won't add things to their beehives that would benefit the bees, and instead they're buying the cheapest bee equipment available of the thinnest materials available. He was upset about it. So that kind of carries on even today. People get so uptight about what every little thing is going to cost. When you're a backyard beekeeper, I look to see what's the benefit to the bees. And if there's a proven benefit, and it doesn't cost me a lot, if you can make things yourself, you're way ahead. Because then it's just the cost of materials. It's rummaging through a wood pile at a construction site if you want to. There's a lot of wood being chucked around out there that you can use. And so if you can build things yourself, you're way ahead. A lot of people can't and don't. That's something that we kind of have a problem with today, is practical skills, woodworking and things like that. But anyway, there's a benefit to it. Now, what's my change? What's the new part going to be? See, you really had to glue and put screws into the sidewall, so because we're putting this stress, what's called a tensile load. We're pulling on the screws and the glue joint there because the side is out here, and we're pushing those screws into the side of the beehive, which pushes that apart, which means it has to be really strong, a tensile load. Now, I can get away from that because what I'm going to do, so visualize it, the same thing, the hive visor, that width, so it goes just the side rails or just beyond the width of your hive. It doesn't have to be much, just enough so it's not impeded, so it's not really clamping or gripping on. What do the Apamea hives have? Every single one of them. They have handles on them. So they have these flip-out handles. So think of your glasses. Think of the hooks on the end of your glasses. We're going to put, they're called L bars or L bolts. So it's a bolt with a 90-degree angle on it. They come in 8-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch. So if you got 8 or 6-inch bolts with that angle on them, and you just drill a hole into the end of the sidebars, and you put that L in there, and you set it with glue, and you could use something like, oh, I don't know, Titebond 3, or you could use Gorilla Glue. Even the foaming kind of Gorilla Glue would be good for that one. Once the glue is set, you have a bar with this hook on it. Flip the handle out, hook the hook on it, and leave enough of a gap in front. This isn't something that hooks tight. It will sag down, and then you have your angle, your shedding angle, and that works. So that's what I've told you in advance I'm going to make my video about. It's going to be so easy to make. Now for the wooden hives, they don't have handles, right? So what are you going to hang those on? Well, all I have to do for those is put either a screw in the side so that the hook goes over the screw. So now instead of, for the wooden ones, I would want a U-bolt end. So they're threaded, there's a little U-bolt, 180-degree turn there. And then that goes over, you just put a screw in the sides and hang it on that. And then there's no clamping, it just hangs on there, good to go. That's going to be the new version. So you know it now, you can build your own. Most of you have already figured it out in your head. It's so simple, so easy, and it will never shift and move around. And then you have to do something with the hive, lift it up, unhook it, set it aside. You don't even have to turn screws to take it off. It's so easy, like a genius right now. It's very easy to do. Gina, that was the last question for today. So we are in the fluff zone. Now, one of the things that we did, I like to ask people to do backyard citizen science with me, right? So we do these simple things, and one of the things is what we were talking about earlier today, which is the bees metabolizing resources. Now, candy boards are super popular, by the way. Why? Because they're easy, they're cheap. You can make your own candy boards so easy. You can take one of those shims and put it on paper and turn it into a candy board just by adding water to sugar. It's almost that easy. Some people add lemon juice and stuff like that. But anyway, I wanted to know, because we need the bees to consume it, so we set up this experiment, and this is a very lengthy experiment. So to make sure that everyone was on the same page, I defined it for everyone, those who wanted to participate. By the way, it's not over with, you can still do it. If you go to the community link, the community area on my YouTube channel page where it says community, if you go down there, you'll see all the surveys and stuff that I have. This is one of the surveys. So we wanted to find out if your bees, so we took a board like this, divided it into thirds, plain sugar, sugar with essential oil added. Third panel, sugar with essential oil and a pollen substitute added. And the whole thing was a brick or a candy board, whatever you want to call it. Wanted to find out which would the bees consume first and the most. That would tell us what they want, right? Because everything else pretty much the same. So with those three components, keep in mind 55% of the participants, and this number can change because I welcome more participants. We want this to continue going. So anyway, 55% demonstrated a clear preference for sugar only. No essential oils, no pollen substitute added at all. 13% went for the sugar and essential oil recipe mixed. 13% also went for the sugar, essential oil, and dry pollen sub. So sugar with essential oils or essential oils with dry pollen sub were equal, but less preferred than regular sugar with nothing in it. And then 19% of the respondents said all recipes were consumed the same, no preference at all. But I have questions for that. When you say they consume them all the same, does that mean they just opened it up and it was all gone? Or did you open it up kind of mid-consumption to see what they were eating first? So that's important. And because I can't put that many, that's one of the problems with the survey setup on YouTube like that, is I can't add a whole bunch of other categories because that's one of the ones I would have. Is this an in-progress check, or did you open it up and it was all gone? So we need to know what the rate of consumption is and which parts they take first. But it's clear 55% are reporting sugar only. So if I were telling you right now, this late in the game, and you want to put something on that hive, you really want them to start getting their carbohydrates and you want them not to die. If you want to make a sugar board, a candy board, it would be dry sugar with water. If you want to know what the formula for that is, go there and erode it all down so that everyone is doing the same thing. It's 10 pounds of sugar to 1 pound of water. That's what you're mixing. And think of it as packing it together just like you were going to make a sandcastle, something like that. And by the way, that's the foundational formula before you mixed in essential oils, and those percentages and of course the pollen substitute are all defined in the recipes as well. So if you haven't done it, you're interested in doing it, please join us and do that. So this is the fluff section, and I don't want to ring alarm bells. I think we're going to be in a pickle because even looking forward, we're going to have one day out of the next 7 where it's even going to get above freezing. That's tough because they need to be doing cleansing flights. My wife was out in the bee yard just the other day, freezing cold day. The sun came out for a minute and bees were doing cleansing flights. That's a one-way flight. They're flying out at a 19-degree temperatures. They're not coming back. They're just going out there, getting zapped by the cold, eliminating in the snow and dying. So we're playing a game of attrition right now. So here's my plan. So that's the way I'm going to phrase it. This is my plan in the northeastern United States. I'm in the snow belt. Every time the Today Show gets up there and Al Roker starts talking about where people are going to get hit, I'm always smack in the middle of the path, whatever it is that's going on, with the exception, thank goodness, of that issue with the weather that's going on in the south. But this is what I'm going to do. The microsecond that I can get out there, I'm going to put Hive Alive fondant packs on as soon as I can. Because right now we're still in really tight winter conditions and it's going to freeze. It's just going to continue to do that. Keep in mind, most of them already have fondant packs on. And that was my goal last summer, was to make sure, because in many winters before, and by the way, just for kicks and giggles, this is my 20th year of beekeeping. So I started in 2006, so this is going to be my 20th year, 2026, and still doing it. Anyway, the problem I had before was not all my hives could even take an emergency feed supplement because they just weren't configured for it. So this year, there are hives that still are not prepared to take emergency feed supplements. And the Layens hives are one of them. They're still alive. The Long Langstroth hive has no more, it has holes. I have those cover boards with holes that I can put. Historically, I put rapid rounds in there. I almost said Ross rounds. I put rapid rounds in there historically, but there's so much honey in there that I just left them with what they have this year. So we're going to see what happens there. But those that can take the packs, I am feeding those. Now, when spring starts to get here, because I think they're going to be fighting the tide, things are going to be late. And I want to make sure that we don't run into one of those problems where with a warm-up, the double tap of that is going to be that it'll probably rain. It's going to do something that prevents your bees from foraging. So along with the warm-up, when the bees get active, they need to get resources, or they'll start to cannibalize their own brood. That's right, they eat their own brood. Because they can't feed them. And why not? Cycle them right back to the bees. But if you can put pollen patties in there, you can thwart that. So that's my plan. There are top-tier pollen patties out there that have all been studied. So Global Patties makes really good patties. There's something called Rocket Fuel out there. I don't know if they have it with pollen or not. The Hive Alive pollen patties, I started using them last year for the first time. And I don't have any gauge for it. I'm not set up like university where we can do the bean counting and find out exactly what the benefit was. But I did notice that the colonies that got that had large brood numbers. So because this spring, I'm just forecasting that we're going to be compensating for a lot of losses due to the extended cold, and we're going to want to recover those early. So when you have a chance to get into that, when things warm up, the Hive Alive for me, pollen patties of 15% pollen patties are going to go in. And they will replace my fondant packs. Now, if it's a if it's a low investment hive that seems to be okay and they really don't need a boost, I will go ahead and put just fondant packs on. So how do I gauge which one is going to get the expensive pollen patties and which ones are going to get Hive Alive fondant packs? The robust colonies that have a big heat signature. Let's take, for example, that silly Keeper's Hive, which is a 2-queen system. They have so many bees in there, I don't understand. Because they should not be doing well. They were super splits. I understand that's cheating. Super splits, if you don't know what I'm talking about, each side of that had 2 frames from 2 frames per colony, 6 frames, 3 colonies per side. So I was pulling brood frames 2 at a time from 3 different hives, put them all together with a queen, and we did the same on each side. That was a recipe for success, late season success. So in spring, the colonies that are small, let's take, for example, Hive 44. That's a tiny colony. A miracle that they're alive right now. They should not be making it. So we have these little underdog colonies. And again, when we go back to, bean counting and deciding what's a return on the investment, should we even resuscitate that colony? Just let them die. Take your losses in fall. I don't like that because it's a game to me. So if I have resources I can put on there, it's a game. Can I get them to survive winter? So 44, they're going to get pollen patties right off the bat. I might put 2 at a time on there. And so any small colony that's at risk of expiration, their heat signature is small, they're underdogs, because these are the ones, let me give you my logic, so that you can assign the same logic to your own bee management. The big colonies with the big numbers, when the warm weather kicks up, they can do all the jobs at once and have foragers coming and going and have guards on the landing board and everything else. They can multitask. They have easily probably 10,000 or more bees coming into spring, and they can multitask really easily. You'll find that some colonies don't fly at all, and they're still occupied, and you're puzzled by that. You look at it and you think, wow, why aren't they flying? Why aren't these bees out there? Because they're in maximum economy mode. They cannot send out frivolous numbers of foragers to do things unless they know for sure there's a resource out there that they can get and bring back. That colony is undermanned, understaffed. They just can't do all the jobs they need to do. So foraging is something they need to do, but their in-hive stuff and conserving their energy and resources is why they don't fly until the weather conditions are perfect. And also why they don't fly unless there's nectar and pollen to be gathered. They don't just go out to see what's going on in the environment and scout out new things. So those are the ones that get the fondant packs, or they get the protein. They get that pollen pack. That's a patty. So, plus I already have them sitting 15 feet from where I am right now. So I'm going to use them. It's going to save their lives because I care. All right, so, and then of course when the weather breaks again, when we get decent warm weather, consistent days in the 60s, let's say, and it looks good going ahead. Let's talk the end of February. That's when the sugar syrup's going to go on again for these high-risk colonies that I need to resuscitate. I just don't want to lose them. So I'm going to put 1-to-1 sugar syrup on at that point. Am I going to put anything in it? Yes, I am. What am I going to put in it? Hive Alive syrup. Why? Because it's proven scientifically to work. Am I advertising that stuff? No, but if you go to buy any, you need to use a discount code called FRED10. They actually have a discount code for me, FRED10. And there's a lot of places that have come up with discount codes I didn't even know about. So wherever you shop, wherever you buy, ask them for the Frederick Dunn discount code. So that's it. As we get to the warmer days, sugar syrup then, because that's the easiest for them to metabolize, use right away, and it boosts them. It also gets them into comb building and all the repairs that they're going to need to do come spring. So, and then your very bottom line. What are you going to do to recover your losses when spring hits? Collect swarms. If you've never collected swarms, you don't know how to do it, get a mentor, somebody to talk to you about it. We have made multiple swarm collection videos. There's so many different tools. You can be as basic as using a butterfly net. You can just shake them into a tote. You can use a bee vac if you want to, but that's an investment. That's a lot of clutter and equipment. Swarms are so easy to get. once you understand what you're doing. So, test my thinking. This spring, you want to get, if you're thinking about starting bees this spring and you're like, I want to order a package. I want to order a daggone nucleus hive. I'm ready to spend $300, $260. Because along with heightened demand is going to be an elevated price, I'm assuming. Now, why not just get your bees for free? Why not get a swarm that's local and just house them up perfect and see how they do? If you're just starting out with bees, you have nothing to lose. Prime swarms in spring can be huge. Better than any package you could buy because they're locally adapted bees. Now, here's the other thing that occurs to me. Like, our stock gets messed up. We get swarms. People buy in packages from all over the place. I'm not saying packages are bad. They're just not as good as your locally adapted stock. That's all I'm saying. So when we have drones flying around in spring, because we're going to mate, we're going to create splits, and we're going to, hive swarms and stuff like that. Maybe even our own swarms. That would be the best too, because it's your own stock. And then when your new queens are flying out to mate, are they mating with drones that are inferior from these packages that are coming in from all over the place? No, because those packages don't have drones yet. See, those colonies that come in packages, they're way out before you're going to see drones coming from them that can mess with your genetics. So you're way ahead by getting and making your own splits and getting these swarms that are local. And how do you get the word out that you're ready to go and collect a swarm? You go to a website and it's called Bee Swarmed, BEESWARMED.org. And you register. You give them your cell phone number. You tell them, you make an account there, it's free. And you tell them how far you're willing to go for a swarm. And it's regional. So you get yourself on that list. And then there's no more of this Facebook post, so-and-so has a swarm of bees, come and get them. And then you find out 3 people got there ahead of you. Get registered. Get it for free. There may be an instance where you can get the alerts through a website or through email. Or if you want to get a text message, they may charge for the text message. 50 cents. I don't know. I'm just random. I'm guessing. So let's say that you got a 50-cent text message that says, swarm discovered 1 mile from you. Because that's the kind of thing it does. And you have a chance to click on a box there that says, claim swarm. As soon as you do that, the alert doesn't go out to anybody else. And anybody else that checks it, it says claimed. Until you release it. So you show up and it's just too big, it's too good, they're too healthy, you don't want them. Now you unclaim it. Or it's too high in the air. There's no swarm. Any swarm that's within 30 feet of the ground now is accessible. Do you know how to collect a swarm that's 30 feet off the ground? You watch a video of me and my grandchildren that was taken 5 months ago. And we used a pole and a wastebasket to get a swarm that's basically 30 feet on a tree, 25 to 30 feet. That's easy kit to tote around in your car, collect swarms, and put yourself right back in business. I think some people are going to end up with no bees in spring, or just a very tiny number of them. The weather conditions are looking bad going forward. I mean, we got Puxatawny Phil, even he's against us. That marmot, that woodchuck, whatever you want to call him, that whistle pig, he came out, he saw his shadow. So he's making us have 6 more weeks of winter. All right, that's it for today. If you have any questions or comments, please put them down in the comment section below. I look at every single comment. If you have something that you want to talk to me about, or you want to send me some idea you have, go to thewaytobee.org, click on the page marked contact, fill out the form. I look at all of those. And that'll be it. So I hope you have a great weekend ahead. I want to thank you for being here today and wish you all the best with your bees and hope that you're not frozen solid. I'm Frederick Dunn, and this has been The Way to Bee.